Welcome and thanks again for joining us. Today's webinar is titled Deliberating Colorado Water Issues. How should we meet the challenges of increasing water demands in Colorado? And while we do not have an answer for this question, we can provide a tool for how to navigate conversations and deliberation around questions such as these. So we'll start off with some introductions. My name is Hillary Mason. I'm the Environmental Literacy Coordinator for the Colorado Alliance for Environmental Education in Denver, Colorado. We're a statewide member-driven organization, and we support environmental education needs across all sectors of the Colorado community. And co-presenting today, I'm very fortunate to be joined by my colleagues and fellow CAEE members and a board member, Sarah and Kelly. So Sarah and Kelly, let's start with Sarah. Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure. So if you're looking at that picture, Hillary's on the far right and I'm on the far left. So I am the owner and founder of Wild Rose Consulting, which is based in Carbondale, Colorado on the Western Slope. And some of my work involves working with the Colorado Foundation for Water Education, as well as other education and outreach projects around water issues in the state and across the region. I'm also the vice president of the board of directors for CAEE, and thrilled to be part of this awesome function, this awesome team that put this together. So, great. And now to you, Kelly.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Gorman. I'm the program director at Yampa up in Steamboat Springs. We're a small environmental education organization that serve, I'd say, K through Gray. So we're in the schools, we're out snowshoeing, we're doing lots of different programs throughout the entire year. And I'm very fortunate to be able to work with Sarah and Hillary on a special project like this.
Great, thanks so much. And thank you both for sharing your expertise on today's topic. I know both of you have a lot of insight and experience in water and education as well. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look at our agenda for today. So participants today will leave with a better understanding about deliberation within the context of environmental education. And we're going to explore deliberation as a methodology that can not only build awareness of environmental issues, such as those related to water availability, but also facilitate civic engagement around those environmental issues. And specifically questions about what should we do about an environmental issue. Kelly is going to, I'm going to go ahead and start us off and provide a little bit of context, and then Kelly is going to discuss the goals of a deliberative forum and differentiate between deliberation and other participatory approaches to public discourse on environmental issues. So in other words, beyond just talking about the issue itself, we are going to discuss how deliberation might engage stakeholder values in issues. So while we won't be talking too much about water issues specifically, we'll be talking more about how to engage those stakeholder values. Then we're going to move on to a description of how a deliberation forum actually works and what to expect during a deliberative forum, and how the Colorado Water Framework came about. So we'll be exploring a framework that we developed to guide deliberation forums around water availability in Colorado. So, and Kelly's going to go ahead and provide some examples, as well as Sarah, on how this framework has been used in educational settings. And then Sarah will be kind of tying the ribbon on everything with sharing some resources and how deliberation has been used nationwide, and providing some information on Environmental Issues Forum series. Sorry about that, folks. I'm going to try and get my screen. There we go. All right. At any time, if you have any questions, feel free to just type them in the chat board. We're gonna kind of be co-piloting the chat board together. All right, so let's set the context for this collaboration. If you see on your screen, there's quite a few entities and organizations that are involved in this unique effort. So just to set some context for why we're here today, in November 2015, an invitation was sent on behalf of the North American Association for Environmental Education, or NAAEE, and this invitation was sent to the Colorado Alliance for Environmental Education's executive director, Katie Nabin. And the request was to send 3 Colorado representatives to attend an environmental issues forum research exchange focused on water. And this research exchange was set to take place at the Kettering Foundation in Dayton, Ohio. So the exchange brought Sarah and Kelly and I together along with 18 other environmental educators from different states, from Florida, Kentucky, Wisconsin, and Kansas. And we were in Ohio to learn more about naming and framing environmental issues, specifically around water and how to guide public deliberation. And this is all going towards the next set of environmental issues forums materials on water. So the vision of this collaboration is to create those materials modeled after the National Issues Forum series. And these materials could then be easily customized and adapted to different geographies. So far this collaboration has produced and published an issue guide on climate change deliberation. The issue guide is called Climate Choices, and we're currently working on similar guides for deliberation on issues related to water and energy. And all of these issue guides are part of the Environmental Issues Forum series in partnership with NAAEE and all the partners you see on your screen there. So as a result of this collaboration starting in November 2015, and with the help of Dr. Leah Sprain at CU Boulder in the communications department, we completed and produced a Colorado-specific framework for deliberation around the issue of water availability in Colorado. So we used a community-wide survey to inform our work at the very start. And then we developed a framework of options and trade-offs, which Kelly is going to describe. And this framework has been vetted by partners in the collaboration and has gone through quite 2 or 3 test forums since it was developed. To set the context for today, and specifically with environmental education. So we're here on behalf of environmental education and using deliberation as a tool for environmental education. So one thing that I think we can all agree and we all know that an environmental issue is extremely complex, such that there really is no silver bullet approach for solving it. So that while we can ask questions like, what should we do about water availability issues? By and large, there won't be one specific answer or one silver bullet. We also know that environmental issues involve many stakeholders at any given time, and those stakeholders hold a diversity of beliefs, worldviews, value systems. So how do we engage those value systems? Environmental problems are wicked problems. They're characterized by being difficult to define, not lending themselves to easy solutions, and always linked with other problems. So for examples of wicked problems would include improving environmental quality, mitigating and adapting to climate change, or deciding how we should meet the challenges of increasing water demand in Colorado. And that's the focus of our efforts here today. So a problem, an environmental problem, once named and framed, so it has been named as a problem and framed as such, becomes an issue when people can't agree over what to do about it. So having a good idea of the cross-sector representation attending this webinar today, you know, we can imagine all of you see a lot of this in your work. So what can we do about it? And this is where environmental education comes in. And we believe in environmental education that tools such as these are powerful for addressing these wicked problems. And when used to address a specific issue, environmental education can support civic engagement, helping people learn about the issue, care about it, take action to address it. Environmental education acknowledges that while we can react to the challenges today, we have to concurrently create a foundation for the future. That being, how can we be informed, environmentally literate citizens? And how can we equip our learners to do the same? So with that in mind, and within the context of environmental education, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly right now, and she's going to speak more about deliberation, what a deliberative forum looks like, and how she has used this process in her work at Yampa-Tika.
All right, thanks, Hillary. Well, everybody can see what our definition of deliberation is right up here on the screen. And I think a lot of you may have actually used this in one way or another, but it's a way for a public to weigh different approaches to solving problems. And you're really trying to find a course of action that relates to the community itself. Deliberation is a very interesting concept, and I hear from a lot of people, I definitely deliberate as opposed to debate, but the more that we dove in and learned about what deliberation is, it really opened up my mind to a new way of facilitating. Let's see. Excellent, thanks, Hillary. This is actually an incredibly helpful chart to highlight the differences in what a debate really is and what deliberation looks like. I've done this with several high school groups, which has been fantastic. And when we first started doing it, it was a little bit difficult for them to understand, oh, we're not going to do a debate. And talking to the teachers about what the differences are between a debate and a deliberation was kind of a fun thing to do or something that was interesting for the teachers to learn about as well. It's really not, we're not looking to compete. It's not an argument. We're really looking at several options, and we're looking to weigh those options. Some of the biggest things about deliberation is really looking at new perspectives and ensuring that we're respectful during the whole process. A debate can often get very fiery, whereas deliberation can get fiery, but there's also the understanding that we will do everything in our power to see someone else's perspective along the way.
Hey, Kelly, this is Hillary. Just let me know when you want to advance.
Oh, great, thanks. I'm not very tech savvy on this side, working over here. If you want to pop to the next slide, that's great, thanks. So we have a lot of different goals for deliberation, and again, this is a great visual put together by the Kettering Foundation for us, looking at simple goals and kind of those longer term goals, really starting out with learning about an issue itself. Some of the goals that I've seen with doing deliberations as well is having people learn to, especially working with young people, how can they work together as a group, having that respect, that baseline set in advance. That goes right alongside of issues learning. Kind of those midterm goals, looking at what are those next steps? What are people going to do with the information that they're processing along the way? And eventually we're really looking at how can we make changes or get the community involved? What are those next steps that people might be taking along the way? Our goals are also very different. It depends on who you're inviting in for a deliberation. If it's a group of high school students, it's going to be quite different than university students, or if you did a deliberation in the community on a wider scope. Right, Ellen? All right, what is a deliberation? I'll give a really quick overview of what this process looks like. Hillary gave an introduction of creating a framework and kind of the backstory of it all, but when you're coming into a deliberation, from my experience, some of the most important things happen at the very beginning. It's setting the tone, setting up some guidelines and rules, and ensuring it's a safe space to be able to have these types of conversations. One of the biggest things that really stood out in deliberation was encouraging and asking people to listen to understand. And it sounds like such a simple concept, but that was one of the largest things to set that tone of respect throughout. Something that works really well, that was really important in the deliberations that I've seen as well, are allowing people to have an opportunity to share their experience with the issue. And it's opening up to the group and asking, what's your experience? What's your interaction with water? What's your viewpoint on it? And it does take quite a bit of time to run through that for the whole entire group, but it really opened things up for a group to participate and feel like they were heard right from the beginning. Once you dive into the deliberation itself, the moderator is there to keep things on track and push things in the right direction. And I found it a little bit challenging to be a moderator. There's some great resources out there so you can learn all the tips and tricks to good moderating. But some of the biggest challenges are not affirming everything. As environmental educators especially, we're constantly affirming, oh, right, I like that idea. What else do we think? It's really a moderator's role is to be unbiased and pull information out and kind of regurgitate what people are saying along the way. Hillary, why don't you go to the next slide if you could? Thanks so much. So we actually use a framework to lead a deliberative process, and this is kind of the front page of what our framework looks like for water availability. We have a big question that's posed at the beginning. I believe Hillary's already talked about that. How should we meet the challenges of increasing water demands with decreasing water availability in Colorado? We put a little bit of an introduction or background information at the beginning of our framework, and then the framework itself has 3 options as potential solutions. And each of the options also have examples of what could be done and trade-offs to consider. And those are the really important parts to get people diving in. When you're moderating, basically you'll start with option 1 and have your participants read through, and then they'll read through and talk about which examples really stand out of what could be done. What do they feel could be the best solution to this challenge? And then on the other side, what are those trade-offs to consider that might be tied directly into those? I mean, this is where I would say things start to feel like a debate once in a while, and it's really can be challenging to keep people on track with staying open-minded and not saying there's only one solution. And it's one of the things that really comes out of this is there isn't just one solution. When I can talk about the examples of the classes that I've done this with, kind of skipping on, I've done it with 3 different high school classes at this point, an AP Bio class and 2 environmental science classes. And I worked closely with teachers to find a good fit and convince them that they wanted to try something totally new, which was really fun. A couple of the classes I worked with throughout a whole semester. So I knew the students fairly well, and two of the classes, or the other classes, it was more of a one-off visit. And I could talk about the pros and cons of that, because I know a lot of you as educators, sometimes you do one-off visits, and some of you are based in a school full-time, which is fantastic. So this type of form could work either way. With high school students, I found it was really helpful to have some information provided in advance. So we actually did a water education lesson before starting with the framework, just to provide that base information. The one class that I didn't do that with, I had students getting up in the middle of conversation and digging out textbooks and trying to find facts and things like that to utilize during the deliberation, which was really great to see. So hopefully that'll provide you a little insight on what I've been fortunate to do with deliberative processes. With the high school students, I'll just throw out a couple quick things that really stood out to me. I had the last deliberation I did, I had one student just stop in the middle and say, "This is really hard. I don't feel comfortable having to choose one thing over another." And that spurred off into its own conversation about, well, what is hard? Do we have to make hard decisions in life, and what does that look like? We had other students that were really made the decision as a group that they would be willing to adjust their current lifestyles to ensure a better future with water. And we had another group, it was really fascinating, that really felt as though at the end that education was the way forward. Education was the way that we would all be able to solve our water problems in Colorado. Without education, no one would get involved. No one would make a difference at all. And as educators, we were all pretty excited to hear that. And I had another class that thought technology was the way forward. And they thought, oh, well, future technology will help solve everything. So every deliberation seems to be quite different with the outcomes. And it's really from the experiences of the participants there and how open they are to discussing things. And really, when you're diving in and trying to pull out to involve students and young people along the way, it's the moderator's job to continue to push things forward and not let them spiral down a bunny hole and off on going too far out on different topics. So I would say for me, it's been a wonderful experience to be able to start doing more of a deliberative form as a way of education. And I could probably talk about this a little bit longer, but I think I'll hand it over to Sarah so she can talk a little bit more about what she's going to be up to.
Thanks, Kelly. And I would just invite all of our participants, if you have questions specific to either Kelly or Hillary's presentation so far, to start to type those into the chat box so we can start thinking about how we might want to answer those questions in a little while. So Kelly, that was awesome to hear about your experience in Steamboat Springs. And if you could advance the slide, Hillary, that would be great. So I want to share with all of you a little bit about how the EIF, or the Environmental Issues Forums, are in the country, and not just, and so we're kind of zooming out a bit from the work that we have been doing as a team here. So the work we've been doing to create the Colorado Water Issues Forum Guide is a piece of the Environmental Issues Forum's larger project. EIF program is, as Hillary said, is a partnership between the North American Association for Environmental Education and the Kettering Foundation. And just some examples of how the different EIF tools are getting used. For those of you who are familiar with the CAEE, Colorado Alliance for Environmental Education Educator Certification Program. So many states have these certification programs, and in Kentucky, moderator training for environmental issues forums is, as I understand it, has been included in that certification, which is pretty cool, and maybe could be instituted into other states' certification programs as well in the future. Also, in other states, Kelly and Hillary and I have been fortunate to work with folks from Kentucky and Florida and Wisconsin and Kansas and others, and we've learned a ton about what's going on around the country. And one of the most common things that I've picked up on is that the university extension programs around the country have really strong water education programs for both adults and kids and students. And so this using deliberation with more adult audiences is being experimented with in Florida, Wisconsin, and Kansas through their land-grant university extension programs at the land-grant universities. And there's links to these examples. These states we have examples on the North American Association for Environmental Education website, so we'll be able to share those with you. And then also, deliberation is used in higher education a fair amount, especially right here in our own state of Colorado. Up at CSU and Fort Collins, one of the programs within the university there is called the Center for Public Deliberation. And they actually train students, both graduate and undergraduate students, to frame issues. Based on what I've learned about them, it sounds like they mostly work on local issues in the county there in Fort Collins and in the local region. And they take local issues and have students help frame them and then teach students how to moderate forums, which is a pretty neat thing. And these centers for public life, as they're sometimes called, exist at universities all over the country. So that's happening a lot of places in different formats, of course, at different universities. The University of Colorado in Boulder, they have a communication studies program that has trained, some of their faculty are trained as deliberation moderators. We actually worked with one of them to do our test forums and to get her, Leah, her professional suggestions as we did test forums. There's also at the University of Colorado, Denver, where Hillary is involved in programming there, is the Environmental Science and the School of Education and Human Development program. And then also to dive in a little bit more on what's going on at these other states that we learned about. And Eastern Kentucky University has a lot of really cool stuff going on. Their division of they have a university division of natural areas, and the College of Education has come together to create a couple different courses. One is a 500 level biology course called Environmental Issues, where they learn to identify, investigate, and evaluate environmental issues and plan appropriate actions. And then the other one is actually a 500 level course in the education department, and it's a teaching environmental education methods course. And they explore the appropriate methods and materials for effective environmental education in a variety of settings in that class. And you can imagine how deliberation could be considered one of the many methods to teach environmental education with different audiences. So it's neat that that's part of the curriculum there, and they're continue to find ways to improve their implementation of using environmental forums, both in the biology course. It sounds like they are using it with students to just have a forum, and in the education course, they're actually incorporating moderator training into the class as well. And I tell you all this because the ideas of how to implement the deliberative forums into all the work you guys are all up to, it's endless how creative you could be on where you use this tool. At the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, they do all kinds of, they're leading the way in a lot of environmental education efforts in our country, and within their College of Natural Resources, and they have partnered up with the Wisconsin Center for Environmental Education, and they have been using a deliberative forum in their environmental issues investigation and action course, which is another upper division course. And again, they're not only teaching students how to explore issues, as we have been taught in environmental education, the whole how to explore an issue, but also how to use deliberation. So there's a lot more resources on the NAAEE website about these two examples. There's actually a whole webinar you could watch if you are a person from higher education. I highly recommend that, just to kind of get a flavor for what's possible, even more of what's possible. So if you want to advance the slide, that'd be great. And so the environmental issues forums, as we have mentioned before, includes a variety of materials, but also forum guides. And as I understand it, the intention is to continue to create more forum guides with time. And so the first one that was done a number of years ago was called Energy Choices. I'm going to go a little bit out of order with this slide. And so that was one of the first ones, and now there's a team of people working on revising it. But the one that's most complete and most available right now is called Climate Choices, and it's of course about climate change. And it basically breaks down how should we meet the challenges of a warming planet, and it offers up 3 or 4 options of what potential options could be. And there's been a lot of energy put behind getting this resource into classrooms at different age levels. So I was actually part of a small team that helped to create some middle school teacher resources. There's also high school teacher resources that were created, and all this stuff is on this website that we're going to share with you. And there's also a lot of other supporting materials for climate choices. And one little tidbit of somebody told us, it was a small secret, but these issue forum guides are downloadable as PDFs for free for like a year and a half or so, and then they make you start having to pay for them. Earlier this week, and it's still available for download as a PDF. And once you have to pay for them, they're only a couple dollars a piece. But if you're interested in ever using this tool, you might as well take advantage of the free resource while it's free. And then you can make copies of it to use with your students or your audience. Again, it's written for a lay audience of adults, but it very well can be tailored for high school and middle school students. And there's a goal to get this tool utilized in over 100 classrooms for 2016. And I haven't met that goal exactly, but there's still, I guess you could say, we're piloting this Climate Choices book, and would love for people in Colorado to be part of that, because I think we bring yet another unique perspective to the world of how do we deal with environmental issues, and all these other states are involved as well all over the country. Why not us too? So take advantage of that. And then finally, there are a few of these other water frameworks online. And I think what's so useful about them is I was looking at them a little closer recently, and the University of Florida Extension has one that they actually have 2 of them. One that's based about dealing with spring restoration and protection, so groundwater springs, and then also one all about stormwater and how stormwater, or how do we manage our stormwater and keep the stormwater from affecting our groundwater. So there's 2 there that I think, especially the stormwater one, we in Colorado could probably take and look at and maybe potentially use parts and pieces of it. We'd have to rewrite the whole thing to make it work for Colorado, but I think there's things to be gleaned from that. And then the Wisconsin one is also about groundwater, and so you can look those up and just kind of get a flavor for what's possible. And who knows, maybe in the future between CAEE and maybe the Foundation for Water Education and maybe some other partners, maybe we would have the capacity to write more framework tools for us to use here in our state. Again, the opportunities are kind of endless, as long as it all just has to do with how much time we all want to put into things and have the capacity to do. Finally, I think it's really important to mention that the Colorado Water Issues Forum that we created, this framework that we created, that I put a link in the chat box to if you haven't already found it. This works towards meeting goals of the Colorado Water Plan, which many of you are familiar with, which we chose to work on the We chose the issue of water quantity as our issue to frame because that is such a humongous issue in Colorado, and it's highly supported by the work of the Colorado Water Plan. And so there's not a formal agreement with or formal relationship with the work we've done and the Colorado Water Plan, but I think we definitely took the plan into account, as well as many, many other well-respected and proven and tried resources to create the content for this framework. Many of the resources from the citizens guides that the Colorado Foundation for Water Education puts together, that you can also read those online for free. So we worked very much in a big kind of broad view, and we tried really hard to not recreate the wheel, but also to utilize the work that many of us have been, and many others have all been a part of over the years. So we hope it's a useful tool. Go for it. So with that, one more thing I want to tell you all is that Kelly and I were able to participate in an all-day moderator training in Madison, Wisconsin back in October. And I would say that both of us, as well as Hillary, we're all three available to all of you to either help come and moderate a forum, or just to be available as a resource on the phone, or however we can assist folks in helping to make this happen and help you feel confident using these tools. So with that, if you have any questions, please go ahead and start typing those in. You're all on mute, so we can't hear you, but we can read your questions. And Kelly and Hillary, is there anything we missed that we want to add in?
No, Sarah and Kelly, this is Hillary. I just wanted to thank you, Kelly, specifically, for your anecdotes that you provided in working with local high schools. And Kelly, for all of you joining us today, Kelly's a great resource. So she's actually used this framework of options, actions and trade-offs, or possible actions and trade-offs, and has presented this along with a cooperating teacher to high school groups, and has, she mentioned earlier, has experienced great success. The students were interested. And then as Sarah mentioned, this framework that we have created is, useful for a lay audience as well. So whether you're in education or in an formal education setting or non-formal education, the framework can be used to guide deliberation, and that's really the intent for the framework, is to guide deliberation at this point. And so eventually that framework is going to be integrated with other state frameworks that are also on this research exchange into creating a full-blown issue guide and materials that go along with that. And it looks like we have a few questions.
Yeah, Hillary, I'll attempt to ask or answer Donnie Roush's question. So Donnie and all the rest of you who are familiar with the Water Plan and the Colorado Foundation for Water Education's Water Fluency and Water Leaders programs. So the answer is absolutely, this tool could be utilized in any water education opportunity. I mean, and it's endless, whether it's a Rotary meeting or it's a leadership development program like Water Leaders. I participated in this entire project on my own and not under the guises of the Water Educator Network. So it's not a piece of the Foundation for Water Education right now, but that doesn't mean it can't become one. And I think that's why we're doing this webinar, is to introduce people to it so that we can find ways and opportunities to incorporate trainings and get it out there and empower people to use it. And as far as also the state education curriculum content, I'm not as familiar as where, if deliberation, where it falls, if it's even included in the social studies standards or somewhere along those lines. But if you're not familiar, the current Colorado academic standards for revisions right now, and I think they're taking public comment on these through middle of February, and CAEE has put together a website, a web page explaining this process of how to add comments, and I have added a few comments to incorporate more water related components to the existing academic standards, but I would highly and other people have as well that have included some comments, and I think if we had all the people on this webinar include some comments about including more water focused pieces into the standards, that would be amazing. But I would, if you do take the time to do that, we'll include the link on how to do that into our final email to you. But I would just recommend that you write very pointed and clear and specific comments to the existing standards. So not just a blanket statement, but actually open up the standards and make suggestions per line by line kind of situation, because I think they'll be better received in that way.
And this is Hillary. I'll go ahead and expand on that point with both, trying to find some ties or connections to the water plan and the state education curriculum, and that is definitely something that we should and could look forward to at this very, very, very new effort here, in new collaboration. So those are actually some really good ideas in terms of looking ahead. So thank you.
Well, maybe if there's no more questions, maybe we can spur some more questions with our next slide, Hillary. And so there are some very specific opportunities for you to learn even more. And one of those is that the three of us are actually going to host a live deliberation of Colorado water issues using this framework on Saturday afternoon, March 11th, during the CAEE annual conference in Denver. And so if you're headed to that conference, make sure to check out that session on Saturday afternoon. The conference, we would invite you to come because everyone is invited. You can come for the day or just for the entire conference. So that'll be an excellent opportunity to see what a moderated deliberation can look like. It's not on this slide because I forgot to put it there, but I'm putting together a Gunnison River teacher this summer starting on June 19th. And during that teacher professional development workshop for the whole week, we're going to incorporate a deliberation and how to use this tool into that week-long professional development opportunity that's also partnered up with the Colorado Water Workshop, which is a water conference that happens in Gunnison every summer. And then finally, we've mentioned these tools. So there's all these free resources that you can download and watch in videos and all kinds of different interactive tools. Anyway, on the website, the NAAEE website. And then finally, the Kettering Foundation has put a lot of energy into creating this program they've called the Common Ground for Action. And they realize that not everybody has the capacity to travel to always go to participate in in-person deliberative forums. And so they've created this online interface to conduct forums. And at some point, our water into this online tool, but we haven't done that yet. But in the meantime, if you're interested in seeing what's possible, you can participate in these online free forums. And they, as Hillary mentioned in the very beginning, these deliberative forums have taken on wicked issues of all kinds, everything healthcare to education to guns and violence. And this week, they're looking, the Common Ground for Action is doing these free online forums with the topic being the political fix. How do we get American politics back on track? And I have participated in a number, probably 2 or 3 of these, and they're really, really cool. And it's not like a webinar. It's a very interactive thing where you're typing in comments and you're reading and listening, and 2 hours goes by really quick. And it's just a really great introduction to what a deliberative forum can, kind of the feel of that. And I highly recommend it. You can also get on their email list and find out about other free forums that are coming up in their calendar in the coming weeks and months. So we hope that you'll take all of this and just kind of absorb it and digest it and look at some of these tools, and maybe we'll hopefully see you in Denver on March 10th and 11th during the conference. And again, we are all resources to you. And in this email that we're going to send, we will include our contact information, our emails, and let us be a resource in any way we can. And with that, if there's any other questions, to type in to the chat box. It's unusual to have a webinar go quicker than usual. Typically they go longer. It's kind of awesome.
All right. So while folks are maybe thinking of some questions, I know that was a lot of information presented, and believe it or not, that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how the naming and framing process goes, and how research exchanges go about creating frameworks for different environmental and social issues. And then once those frameworks are completed and issue guides are completed, holding deliberative forums with those frameworks to guide those that deliberation. And then, kind of the end all be all is to get feedback and get a gauge for what the general public is thinking about some of these larger issues. And that feedback from these forums ideally feeds into some of the publications that Kettering puts together. So they basically synthesize all of the information that comes from the online forums and in-person forums through their moderators who have been trained and have gone through a training process, which you all can do. That feeds into public knowledge and awareness and potentially policy making in some instances. So with that said, Sarah and Kelly, are there any enduring, lingering thoughts that you have before we close for the day? Kelly, are you?
Sorry, I had the microphone muted. I don't think I have anything else to add unless there's questions that come along with them.
No, it's been great to know that a number of you on the webinar today. And I look forward to running into you guys in person in the coming months. And thanks so much.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. A recording is going to be available and sent out, as well as many links. There are so many materials out there. We'll also let you know if there's any online forums coming up that you can participate in. We are just getting trained on how to moderate the online forums as well. So again, this is, fairly new for everyone, but holds a lot of potential. And we hope that you all can take a look at it, do a little bit of digging and investigating, and see how you can apply these issue guides and frameworks to your work, specifically around water. All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. We're going to go ahead and close there, and have a great rest of the day.